President Biden pardoned Anthony Fauci of one of his last acts as president. In one of his final acts as president, Joe Biden pardoned several high profile former government officials, including Dr. Anthony Fauci. In a statement, he said, the issuance of these pardons should not be mistaken as an acknowledgement that any individual engaged in any wrongdoing, nor should acceptance be misconstrued as an admission of guilt for any offense. Our nation owes these public servants a debt of gratitude for their tireless commitment to our country. Fauci was the director of the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Disease at the National Institute of Health for nearly 40 years and helped coordinate the nation's response to COVID-19 pandemic. In December 2024, the Bipartisan Select Subcommittee on the Coronavirus Pandemic released the findings of an investigation into the response, which determined that the National Institute of Health did, in fact, fund controversial gain-of-function research at the Wuhan Institute of Virology. It also found that the SARS-CoV-2 virus likely emerged because of a laboratory research-related accident, and that in 2020, Fauci promoted a study titled The Proximal Origin of SARS-CoV-2, which supported the natural origins theory to disprove the lab leak theory. What are your thoughts, Brian, looking back on those years? And as one of the last acts, a pardon being issued with the guidance that this should not be construed as any level of wrongdoing.
The problem is when you set precedents, they will be taken up. And to me, when people talk about a threat to democracy or government accountability, which there usually isn't a lot of, I think if you preemptively pardon a bunch of government officials, what is going to happen every single time is that anybody in government is going to realize they can kind of break the law, bend the law, or invent their own ideas of what the law is. And they know that as long as they're loyal to the king, they'll get pardoned. And it puts way too much power in the hands of a president among his minions. Because think about, towing the line, you're a loyal person and you might do some things like keep kids in masks for 2 years, shut down a bunch of businesses, randomly make up some rules like a 6 foot, keep people 6 feet apart, and install all these things that all of us followed in good faith. Even though, by the way, the death rate was 0.25%, not 3.4%, which CNN and all these other mainstream news people had as tickers because they knew it was good for ratings. And what happens is you will instill a culture that says you pay no price for being wrong. And it doesn't matter what you did to the public at large. So for me, preemptive pardons are a very dangerous precedent. And I think Joe Biden is once again on the wrong side of history on this. It shouldn't be a surprise. That guy's a blowhard, always has been. And so those are my thoughts. I think these things can be very insidious and a lot more dangerous than people give them credit for.
I think one of my biggest issues, especially what happened during COVID, and I was saying this at the time, is I don't understand why people, and I'm sure Dr. Fauci has every abbreviation after his name and every pedigree in school and all those things. I just don't understand why we always have to act like we have the answers at all times. And I think the biggest mistake that the government was in saying, this is our guidance. And then something else would happen and they would say, this is our guidance. And then something else would happen and they would change it. Instead of saying, we are doing the absolute best we can as a human species to try to figure out what's going on here. We'll get to the origin story at some point in time. And maybe we'll actually have some transparency and integrity in how we do that. But this is the best thing that we know what to do right now. And just being open and honest. And when you have a guy like Fauci saying, if you question me, you are questioning science, and putting somebody on a pedestal at that level, I don't understand how the government, and then it works its way out, one, with the constantly shifting goalpost.
Yeah.
Every time that you're wrong, your integrity goes down and down and down and down. And eventually what happens is people see you on the screen and they reach up with their clicker and they turn you off. Or more than likely, it's probably going to be on their phone at this point and they swipe away.
But we couldn't do that in this case.
We couldn't do it. And we had a very good friend who was kind of on the other side of that voice. And holy cow, he became the whipping boy of traditional media. How does the government return to any semblance of trust and integrity when one of the final moves, because again, there are still people that will, with their last breath, tell you that somehow somebody ate a bat in an
Yeah.
open, wet market that just happened to be blocks away from a virology institute. And that is how this came out. Without a true investigation, without our ability to actually maintain our integrity, how do people ever put faith back in institutions or individuals like this?
Let's go back to the fact that you had a bunch of, and this, let's put it on the Democrats, it's their fault in this case. You had a bunch of very creative DAs, Alvin Bragg and the rest of them, and Fannie Willis, who want to make their name by bringing down the Orange Man. And so what you do then is you charge them with a crime that nobody gets charged with. I mean, it's stating that you're writing a bunch of checks, the same check, 35 times, not 35 indictments, supposedly inflating the value of your property, which everyone does. Everybody thinks their property is worth more than it is. In this case, he didn't. Paid back the bank anyway for the loan, and inventing these sort of reasons for how to bankrupt somebody, put them in jail. You will be matched, my friends. You will be matched as soon as the tide turns and the other side has the power. So what we have to realize is that if you start abusing your power to settle a score, if you are a creative DA and you want to take down Trump so you can do what? Write a book and make a lot of money, which is what goes on. When you have a culture that values the fact that you can amplify your monologue, all that matters is that you can amplify your monologue. It's not about nuance. It's not about solving problems. That's thoughtful. That's nuance, bro. What you want to do is you want to paint good guys and bad guys. You want to be, they're so uncreative, but there's a lot of money. There's a lot of money in calling Trump a fascist. There's a real incentive structure there because you can garner a whole lot of attention, which you can turn into dollar bills. So until we realize that we are in this, what's it called, a Malachian spiral, we're all out competing each other to kind of get one up as we just spiral down into this shitstorm that becomes an actual threat to our democracy. So you've got to understand what we are. The most important thing is recognizing where the head of the snake is. There's a great quote by Mark Twain that says, "I see men everywhere hacking at the branches of evil while none are striking the root." You got to get to what the real problem is, man. And so again, this is an incentive structure that we have. You can come up with all the reasons, but the founding fathers talked about the value of virtue. A democracy doesn't work unless you have character. Unless what was always very important in our society was, and the problem with victim mentality was that you as an individual first, before you try to change society, Mr. 18-year-old, Mr. 20-year-old, Mrs. 21-year-old, you don't know how the world works. You got to build your own character, get your own house in order. You as an individual, very important to learn about yourself, get good at something so you can understand your limitations and work on your own character. So you understand why telling a lie is not going to work out for you, etc. Why it's just not what you should do. You cannot run a society, especially a democracy like ours, without that. So says, I don't know, people like Thomas Jefferson and Ben Franklin, etc. Yeah, and it's a very important thing because if you look at the left's mentality, it has nothing to do with you working on yourself. If you've got problems, somebody did that to you. If you've got problems, you're a victim. And the idea that somebody says, maybe you brought those problems on yourself. Maybe your culture, your subculture isn't so good for the 21st century because you're not emphasizing frugality, family, and education as an example. No, it's got to be the only reason you're where you are is because of these mean oppressors. This is a fundamental difference in philosophy, man. It really is. And the country was founded on the idea of individual responsibility, self-reliance. I'm not saying we're all islands. We all need each other. You need help. No man makes himself. I understand. But as long as we keep taking the emphasis off of personal character, personal responsibility, and understanding what you as a person, when you don't work on your own house, when your own house isn't in order and you're trying to fix other people's houses, we're going to have a major mess on our hands. So to me, the honor system is gone. How do you fix that? Good luck. I don't know.
Good morning, everybody. As you know, Change Agents is an IRONCLAD original, but what you may not know is that for over a decade, IRONCLAD has worked with brands and individuals to create world-class films, series, podcasts, and ad campaigns. In fact, I've been working with IRONCLAD for the past few years. I was introduced to them on a project through the Navy SEAL Foundation. I've worked with them on a variety of projects, even up here in Montana, long before they proposed the idea of Change Agents to me. They're the best in their field. And I say that because there are plenty of people out there looking for the best, looking for the cream of the crop, looking for the top of the triangle. And if you're looking for that, you need to look no further than IRONCLAD. If you ever need media by way of film, a series, podcasts, or ad campaigns, they have you covered. I was going to ask you, I mean, do we limit the ability of an outgoing administration with some type of boundaries? Because I do agree with you. If the pendulum swings and one side feels that it was egregious, what are they going to do? They're going to swing it back in the other direction and probably plus 2%. Well, then it goes back in the other direction, plus 4%. And before you know it, it's a sickle that's taking off every head. I don't know. I don't know. I don't have an answer to it either, but I like to see the system play itself out as opposed to the system being skirted. And that's what I view this blatant pardon as.
That's exactly right. Now, there is one caveat to this. Fauci, a president can pardon you for your federal offenses, not your state offenses. So there are loopholes here.
Well, I asked about it as well because I was under the impression, and this was explained to me to be true. If you've been pardoned, you can no longer invoke your Fifth Amendment right because you've been pardoned for anything that you would have been punished for, criminal activity. So he can still be investigated. You still could be subpoenaed to testify in front of Congress. He can't invoke the Fifth Amendment, but if he does lie, or if anybody lies who has been pardoned or anything forward beyond that point, that becomes actionable. So you can still perjure yourself. You know what I mean? So it gets a little bit murky. And at the end of the day, all I actually would really want is the truth. Can we just get the truth? And hey, you're not going to go to jail for it. So dude, in the 4 years you probably have left because you're 178 years old, can you please just tell us the goddamn truth?
Yeah. I personally hope that the Trump administration doesn't practice the same legal warfare that the Democrats did. I think it's a bad idea. I think we have to set a standard. We got to get to work. When I say we, I don't know why I'm saying we, but the Republicans have a very, very valuable opportunity to make everybody's life better than it is today. And I don't think the energy should be placed on revenge, settling scores. I think that's a big mistake. I think we should get back to, first of all, understand the price that will be paid if we come after, if we have a vengeance list that we make good on. I don't think that's where our attention should be. I don't. Let the history books sort out Anthony Fauci. We're moving on. We got a lot of shit to do here. And, and I promise you, things will move slowly. Executive orders are what they are, but if you live by executive orders, you will die by executive orders. These things will be challenged. Let me give you a couple more things. You got this whole Tom Homan, they're like, he's going to deport millions of people. That's adorable. It's adorable. Let me tell you how it works, kids. All right. All you guys think we're going to round up all these illegal aliens and get them out. Okay. Watch this. The minute you're an illegal alien in this country, if you're smart, and they are, you get rid of all your papers. Okay. You listening? You get rid of all your fucking papers. Now what happens? You get picked up by ICE and they go, where are you from? And they go, well, here's my ID. It says I'm American. I got a working permit. And they go, no, you're not. You got an accent. We know you're not. Unless they are registered in a data bank, like in Mexico, and they've committed a crime and they got their fingerprints, you don't have a country to send them back to. Okay? You don't have a country to send them back to. Watch this now. It'll get you really crazy. So we got to keep them here. There's nothing you can do. You basically got to let them out of detention. And then you've kind of got to give them a work permit. Otherwise, they become wards of the state. That includes illegal aliens that commit crimes. You pick a guy up, committed a crime. He does his 5 years, does his 10 years. Now he's out. He's not going to tell you what country he's from. He's from America. We have to give him a work permit. If we don't, again, he becomes a ward of the state. That costs a lot of money. It makes no sense. So he goes back to work. Now, let me keep going. We had these fires in Los Angeles, lost 12,000 structures. If you know anybody who owns restaurants, and I know a lot of them because I eat out a lot at fancy restaurants, I have that kind of cash. It doesn't matter. But where am I going to take Andy or Joe Rogan when they come to see me? Home, please. But all of the people in those kitchens, all those people are south of the border. Almost all of them. Anybody will tell you they've got papers, but they're all illegal. Okay. Anybody in the construction business, the conservative estimate is people that work in the construction business, at least in California, 28 to 30% are illegal. Okay. The agricultural sector, don't get me started. People that are picking your tomatoes and everything else, all illegals. Now, a lot of them get absorbed into the economy. The reason that Homan and those guys are talking about they're saying we're going to have mass deportations. They know they can't actually do that because the farmers are going to be like, bro, you're killing me here. I need this labor. Okay. So they're going to go after who? They're going to go after people that have actually committed crimes. And they're going to check to see if they're going to check the data banks in Guatemala and everywhere else to see if they have their fingerprints are registered. Or if there's a family member that can say, yeah, that's my brother. Now, that's on an individual basis. We got many, many thousands of people out there, maybe millions. Do you know how long that's going to take? Do you know? So You're not going to have mass deportations. When you get down to the level of detail and you talk to the people, which I have, who actually have to do this stuff, who actually have to go find those people, it's very sobering, very sobering. So the shit you hear on TV and the political jargon and how we're going to do this and that, one of the great things about our country, and also one of the things that probably maddens people, is it's a very slow moving process. And the founding fathers did not want functional government. You don't want a seamless, smooth running government. You don't want fast moving government, guys. You want a slow glacial pace. And that's what checks and balances are all about. That's how you prevent one powerful faction from engulfing all the other factions. Read the Federalist Papers. James Madison. Why don't we have a national holiday to that 5-foot-inch fucking mental giant? We owe it all to that guy. Genius. John Jay, James Madison, Alexander Hamilton. Holy shit. One of the great ideas in philosophy, the Federalist Papers. They solve the political problem. So part of this is that we've got some very smart people in the Trump administration. I'm actually very optimistic. I like a lot of these people, but it's going to be slow moving. You're going to have a lot of legal challenges to all of these things. And we should. It's just the way it works. So the idea behind, if government is not efficient and everything else, amen to that. You want a glacial pace, regardless if they're Republicans or Democrats. It's why we have a bicameral legislature. The Constitution is genius, not because of the paper that it's on. That's worth about as much as the paper itself. Well, the genius of the Constitution is it doesn't allow power to rest in any one group's hands.